I'm afraid we need to look at Louise Haigh, the erstwhile Transport Secretary, who only last week was defending bus fare increases as a necessary evil in the face of paying off striking train drivers at huge cost. And now in this dramatic twist, I mean, she didn't blink 1 minute when she was facing Laura Kuenssberg. But now, in this dramatic twist, she's resigned, not over transport policy, but a decent old honest mistake. I'm not sure what the mistake is. Is the mistake that she lied, or is the mistake that she got caught out in the first place? It's the same sordid stuff. People who take a high moral tone and are then found that the rug is pulled from under them. The seeds of this resignation were sown in 2013 when a 24-year-old Haigh, then working at Aviva, experienced what she described as a terrifying mugging. In her report to the police, she claimed that her work phone had been stolen, only later to discover it languishing in a drawer at home. Rather than promptly informing her employer or the police, she followed legal advice during subsequent questioning to not comment. This silence drew the ire of law enforcement, culminating in an appearance at Camberwell Green Magistrates Court, where she pleaded guilty to making a false report. She received a discharge, a verdict so lenient that it's practically an institutional shrug, but it was technically a conviction, and there's the rub. Politics, as we know, is less forgiving of optics than of misdemeanours. So fast forward to today, Haigh's conviction, now classified as spent, was no secret to Labour's leadership. Indeed, Haigh declared it before her ascent to the shadow cabinet in 2015, yet the revelation by Sky News last week forced this skeleton out of the closet at the most inconvenient time for the Labour government, struggling to project competence after a bruising budget. In her resignation letter to Keir Starmer, she wrote, with remarkable contrition, whatever the facts of the matter, the issue will inevitably be a distraction from delivering on the work of this government. Yes, same sort of distraction as the bizarre CV of Rachel Reeves. I mean, how often is that CV going to change over time? Louise Haigh, I think, has probably been unfairly treated. She frames her actions as a genuine mistake of youth, yet the language begs the question, can a decade-old transgression haunt somebody forever, or does it simply offer political opponents a stick to beat them with? If something is a spent conviction, then it shouldn't need to be described. The problem is in the manner of Louise Haigh itself. The problem is in what she does and how she responds to other people. And Starmer has thanked Haigh for her efforts, particularly in laying the groundwork for the Great British Railways and advancing Labour's flagship policy of rail nationalisation. His statement was careful to leave the door ajar for her return, a shrewd political move to balance decisiveness with compassion. I know you still have a huge contribution to make in the future. But this raises questions about Starmer's judgment. If this spent issue is still an issue today, then it will still be an issue in 3 years' time, or 4 years' time, or 5 years' time, won't it? It's not going to go away. If we suddenly decide that spent convictions are worth resignation today, then they're worth resignation tomorrow. I don't think they're worth resignation at all. Do I think Louise Haigh should stay? No, but those are different issues. And the Conservatives have pounced, of course, on the scandal, asking why Haigh, who was entrusted with a £30 billion budget, was ever appointed with this blemish on her record. Well, as David Cameron said rather brilliantly and eloquently, we all have a past. It's not a failure of vetting or simply the reality of shallow political talent pool of not having very many candidates to do the job. It's about changing the goalposts halfway through the process. If this conviction was spent, this should not have led to a resignation. Should Louise Haigh still be in her job? Obviously not. But that's on a different basis. The resignation lands in the middle of Labour's fraught efforts to rebuild trust in politics, and this, I think, is not the way. Haig's departure overshadows key negotiations from electric vehicle policies to rail reform, while reinforcing public cynicism about political accountability. It also amplifies the narrative of distraction, a government focused on self-inflicted scandals rather than getting on with the job of governing. Haigh herself might be seen as a casualty of her past, but her story also underscores the perilous intersection of personal error and public office. Did she step down to take responsibility, or was this resignation a pragmatic sacrifice to shield Labour from further fallout? As Haigh herself admits in the letter, I remain totally committed to our political project, but I now believe it will be best served by my supporting you from outside the government. Well, that may well be true as well. The saga also illuminates a deeper question about political life. When is a genuine mistake forgivable? For someone who rose to prominence championing accountability as a former special constable and shadow policing officer, the irony is rich. Yet it's also a reminder that politics is a merciless arena, where context is irrelevant and the court of public opinion unrelenting. In the words of the Conservative Party's ever opportunistic spokesperson, it is clear she has failed to behave to the standards expected of an MP. Yes, well, there's plenty of standards which have been overlooked in the very recent past. The phrase drips with hypocrisy. And pincher by name, pincher by nature comes to mind, given the track record of misdeeds on the Conservative benches, but politics, after all, is rarely a game of consistent principles. Louise Haig's resignation is as much about the perception of dishonesty as it is about her past conviction. Whether her departure will extinguish this particular firestorm or simply spark new ones for Keir Starmer's government remains to be seen. What is certain is that this episode reinforces an age-old lesson in politics. The truth will out. And when it does, timing is everything. And the response is all.